Yeah.
A very warm Tashi Belek to the guest of speakers, Dr. Kesang Wangmula and Geshelote Sangpola, and everyone watching us. For your kind information, this will be a question-answer session. So let's begin. I am very honored to invite you to be the guest of speaker at Hadin Chutul Melam Chimo Trust on Je Rinpoche's biography. It is my greatest privilege to briefly introduce our first speaker, Dr. Kesang Wangmula, who will be throwing lights on the early part of Je Tsongkhapa's biography. Dr. Kesang Wangmula is an assistant professor in the Department of Far East Languages, Central University of Jharkhand since 2013. Prior to that, she worked as an assistant professor at the Department of Buddhist Studies in the University of Delhi. She also worked for Pragya, an NGO which focuses on the sustainable development of the Himalayan region, its marginalized community, sustaining livelihood generation and promoting ecotourism. She has specialized in Tibetan language, literature, Buddhism, and Himalayan studies. Now, I would like to ask Dr. Kesang Wangmo some questions. Could you please throw some light on Je Tsongkhapa's early education and learning?
Thank you so much, Tinsu Domala, and then the other Gishlas. Of course, I'm not the right person to talk on Je Tsongkhapa's life and his achievements and works and teachings, but I'll still try to do little justice. So if you to throw some light on Je Lama Tsongkhapa's early education and learning, for the first 13 years, Je Lama Tsongkhapa was studying under his root teacher, Lama Choje Thundup Rinchen. He started his academic journey from in-depth learning of both Sutric as well as Tantric teachings. Under Lama Thundup Rinchen, he recognized how philosophical insights complement and cannot exist without aesthetic and yogic contemplation on the tantras. He felt that his practice of the tantras was not in contradiction to philosophical studies. Instead, it was an essential complement. At that early age, Je Lama Tsongkhapa received training on great mandalas of the Yoga Tantra and complete set of standard initiation in the 3 lower classes of Tantra. And he also received initiation on Heruka Tantra in accordance with the 3 traditions of Mahasiddha, Luipada, Gantapa, and Krishnapada. He also received instructions on the Anuttara Yoga Tantra and Chakra Samvara according to the tradition of Luepa and Naropa, and he received empowerment in 3 most wrathful tantric deities, Guhya Samaja, Heruka Chakra Samvara, He Vajra, and Yamatara. This can be evident from the fact that these are clearly reflected in his great works. Out of 18 volumes of collected teachings written by him, 5 were devoted solely to Guhya Samaja. This also, in fact, laid the theoretical and experiential foundation for his conviction that Sutric and Tantric teachings should be compatible. Since at the time, Buddhists tended to be one-sided to Sutric or Tantric teachings, Lama Tsongkhapa's main objective was to create a synthetic perspective between Sutra and Tantra in Tibet. So if I want to quote from Professor Thurman's book, Life and Teachings of Tsongkhapa, to give a fair idea of the situation during the time, there were certain great individuals such as Kagyu, Sakya, and Nyingma Herarch or Puton himself, who were equally matters of exoteric philosophical studies and of esoteric tantric studies. The prevailing view in Tibet at the time was that the two were mutually exclusive paths. Those proficient in scholarship were highly suspicious of the wild of tantric yoga and the ascetic sense, and the ascetic sense tended to be contemptuous of the book learning of the scholars, whom they consider merely an erudite and quite unenlightened, unquote. Such distorted thought at the time would be due to a period called dark period. It occurred during the time of great master Atisha, and Je Tsongkhapa followed, and he focused on reforms to elevate those distortion in Buddhism. It was great master Atisha who dispelled such views and started the Kadamba tradition. Later, when people could not see how learning and yogic practice were to be united, Je Tsongkhapa came and revealed the correct path. Thank you. Hope I shed some light.
Ma'am, I would like to know about the early life of Je Tsongkhapa. So will you please briefly summarize on Je Tsongkhapa's early life?
Thank you. Je Tsongkhapa, popularly known as Je Rinpoche, was born in 1357, in the Tsongkha Valley in Amdo province in the northeastern part of Tibet. He had spent many years traveling from one monastery to another in search of the various lineages of Buddhist teachings. He is famous for his scholarly contribution, religious reforms, and synthesized practiced on sutra and tantras, which became the focus of majority of his writings. He studied complete range of Theravadin, Mahayana, and Vajrayana doctrines, as well as studying with almost 46 masters from all traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. Therefore, it is considered that Tsongkhapa's tradition was to present a synthesis system of the several Buddhist schools in the early 14th century. So according to the sources, biography sources, I quote, Tsongkhapa was the fourth of 6 children. His father was Dharakhaje Lubumge and his mother was Shingmo Ache. They lived among the Mal clan in the East Onion Valley, a part of Lower Amdo that earlier had come under the rule of the Tibetan kings. According to the biography by Gindinrup, he was born at the dawn when the great star Venus had arisen in the female bird of the 6th sexagenary cycle, Rabjung, 6th Rabjung. This year is approximately equivalent to 1357 AD, unquote. It is also mentioned that Tsongkhapa's parents were not ordinary beings. They had also taken birth with a purpose and for a long time had prayed hard to be connected with the Je Tsongkhapa when he descended in the world to help the sentient beings. So as soon as Je Tsongkhapa was born, Lama Chüje Dhundrup Rinchen, who then was in his retreat in the hill near the village where Je Tsongkhapa was born, sent an honor for the parents with holy pills and threads and a message to take good care of the boy. Later, when they asked the master about how he came to know about Je Tsongkhapa's birth, he told the parents about a dream where he was blessed, where Chüje Dhundrup Rinchen was blessed with Doji Jigje's Vajra Bhairav's presence. So Lama Chüje prayed for the presence to occur more often, for which the deity had replied that I will soon descend on this earth, and till that time be patient. Moreover, Lama Chüje said that after striving hard through deep meditation by concentrating on the single pointedness, he could confirm if this boy was actually the manifestation of Lord Doji Jigje. Je Tsongkhapa got an early start in his religious career. He took Upasaka layman's vows from the 4th Gyawa Karmapa Rolbe Dorji and received the name Kungai Ningbo. At the age of 7, he took novice from his teacher, Lama Chüje Dhundrup Rinchen, and was given the name Lobsang Thakpa. It is said that even at this age, at this young age, he is said to be extraordinary in the aptitude and scholarship. It is also known that Je Lama Tsongkhapa also received many tantric initiations and teachings, including the Heruka empowerment, and was given the secret name as Thönye Dorji. Je Lama Tsongkhapa is said to have always craved for more spiritual knowledge and wanted to understand all the doctrines of the Lord Buddha. He also had great desire to help sentient beings through imparting the teachings of the Buddha. So at the age of 16, and after studying and learning under his root teacher for 13 years, finally Je Lama Tsongkhapa expressed his desire and decided to move towards central Tibet with the consent from his root teacher, Lama Chökyi Thöndrup Rinchen. The fact about Je Lama Tsongkhapa's early life sequence has been stated variedly by various biographies. Some lay stress on the events that occurred in the society during his early life so as to give some ideas about the period then. On the other hand, some other biographies makes an effort to temporarily describe Je Lama Tsongkhapa's early life. On the other hand, the difference in the knowledge gathered from these biographies about his early life must have arisen because the biographers never saw it as their foremost task to state about the exact development of the events that took place in the early life of Je Lama Tsongkhapa, but instead they were more concentrated into imparting knowledge to the commoners regarding the deed done by the master and his spiritual and educational qualifications. So the accomplishment, the resultant emancipation which came Je Lama Tsongkhapa's way seemed to have captured the mind of all the biographers in Tibetan spiritual history. It is indeed not only biographers who were so captivated by Je Lama Tsongkhapa's emancipation, but the readers of their biographies like me were also engrossed by the charm attached to Je Lama Tsongkhapa's idea of emancipation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. For someone such as great Je Tsongkhapa, I am really interested to know about the contributions of the great masters who made major impact on Je Tsongkhapa's education and learning experience. Could you please share us some light on this topic?
Thank you so much. It would be little lengthy. I would start. Je Lama Tsongkhapa continued his life of study and practice under Lama Chökyi Thöndrup Rinchen for 13 years. He studied Maitriya's ornament for the realizations, as well as other remaining four great treatises of Maitriya. He continued to study in Amdo until he was 16, and then he went to central Tibet for further study. He never returned to his homeland. Thereafter, he began to travel wide throughout Tibet in order to find teachers who could teach him the Dharma. His approach was non-sectarian. He was willing to learn from anyone, from any lineage. The biographies point out that his study of the 5 classical treatises of Shungchen Kapyonga of Buddhist teaching or subject was not as formalized as it later became. So he chose these treatises based on his interest and the place he traveled to. He moved from one monastery to another, taking instructions in various topics from many different teachers, and sorted out the leading teachers who had special expertise in a particular text or the lineage of teachings and studied them. His first teacher after his root master, master was Lama Chökyi Gyebo, the head Lama of the Digung monastery. He learned various topics such as the altruistic mind, bodhicitta, and 5 sections of Great Seal, Mahamudra. After his learning from Digung, he traveled to the Chota Chimpu Devache in Nyethang, and he studied the perfection of wisdom, Pragyaparamita, with a complete understanding of the text. Before he was 19, he was already acknowledged as a great scholar. Then Je Lama Tsongkhapa visited the great monastery of Shalu in central Tibet and received Heruka initiation from Khenchen Rinchen Namgyal, a direct disciple of the founder of the monastery. During his traveling, he met the great master whom he later considered as his principal teacher, the Sakya master Lama Jidzu Rendava. Tsongkhapa wrote Niksema verse in praise of him, but the master rededicated it to Je Lama Tsongkhapa. The relationship between them was each other's teacher and student and vice versa. Je Lama Tsongkhapa had a great respect for Lama Jigje Rendava's method of teaching on the treasury of Abhidhamma Koshakarika, and its auto commentary. He also studied the treatises on logic and epistemology of Dharmakriti, Asanga's compendium of Abhidhamma Samuchaya, and then Chandrakriti's entrance into the middle way, Madhyama Karika. He then returned to Nyethang and studied root texts of Vinaya and the treasury of knowledge under the great scholar of monastic discipline called the abbot Kashiwa Lose. He then went to Nanying and gave his first teaching. He gave teachings on Abhidhamma and particularly on Asanga's compendium of knowledge, which is the compilation of Theravada Abhidhamma. From there, he took audience of Lama Jigje Rendava again in Sakya Monastery and received an explanation on the root tantra of He Vajra Tatra Gyanama, Dorji Rinchen. Je Lama Tsongkhapa then went into retreat for a few months, and in between the session, he studied the commentary on the compendium of valid cognition, Pramanavartika Karika, one of the 7 treatises on Pramanavati by Dharmakriti. He also received teachings on the poetry from the great translator Namka Sangpo, and then returned to Lama Jigje Rendava for elucidation on the 5 major treatises, Shungchen Kapeonga, and from the great abbot of Narthang received instructions on the 6 works on reason by Nagarjuna, 6 doctrines of Naropa, the works of Phangmodupa, and the teachings of the founder of Digung Kagyu. At the age of 32, Je Lama Tsongkhapa commenced writing a commentary on Pragyaparamita Sutra. He synthesized all 21 Indian commentaries relating to the ornament for realization. For Mitra's text itself is a commentary to the Pragyaparamita Sutra and called his work the Golden Rosary of Eloquent Teaching. At the age of 33, Je Lama Tsongkhapa entered into the practice of Tantra. He carried out Heruka practice of the Kagyupa, the 6 yogas of Naropa, the Tantric practices of Niguma and Kalachakra Tantra. Then he went to Kyomo Lungpa and gave discourses on the Kalachakra cycle, the ornament of realization, and entrance to the middle way. He then decided to concentrate on studying the 4 classes of Tantra and search for a teacher. He went to Rongdup Chelung and received many initiation from the abbot Thapa Shenge. Each of the 4 Tibetan tradition has a standard set of initiation and permission with respect to the practice of the lower divisions of Tantra, and the great abbot conferred a part of such a set. Je Lama Tsongkhapa had fortune to again meet Lama Jigje Rendava in Tangden and receive the teachings of the Guhya Samaja Tantra. Further, Je Lama Tsongkhapa went to meet Lama Pao Dorji, who was famous for having received vision of black Manjushri in eastern Tibet. According to Tibetan tradition, it is said that Lama Umapa had been under Manjushri's care for many lifetimes and repeated Manjushri mantra Om Arapacha Nadi even in his mother's womb. Je Lama Tsongkhapa asked him for the teaching of Manjushri Dharmachakra, and he in return explained to Lama Umapa the self-commentary of the Madhyamika avatar. Further, he went to study under Lama Chugipel, who was the most learned in the Kala Chakra among the great disciples of Pudun Rinchen Drop. From him, Je Lama Tsongkhapa received the external, internal, and secret Kala Chakra teachings. He then went to Shalu Monastery and met a specialist of the Yoga Tantra named Yogapa Goentsang. Lama Goentsang trained him in the great mandalas of the Yoga Tantra, such as Vajradhatu Mandala. Back at Shalu, Je Lama Tsongkhapa received from the Nyingma Lama Kyungu Lekpa the great mandalas of Yoga Tantra and complete set of standard initiation into the 3 lower classes of Tantra, as well as Heruka Tantra, in accordance with the 3 traditions of the Mahasiddhas, Luipada, Gandapada, Kridnapada. He also received many instructions on the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, Chakra Samvara, according to the tradition of Luipada and Luipa and Naropa. And then Je Lama Tsongkhapa and his core disciple restored a Maitreya statue in Lhasa, which was the first of his 4 major deeds. They then went into retreat for 5 more months. After this retreat, the Nyingma Lama Lhota Namka Genze, who continually had vision of Vajrapani, invited Je Lama Tsongkhapa and gave teachings on 2 lineages of Kadamba tradition and oral guideline lineages. Je Lama Tsongkhapa shared his desire in front of Lama Lhota Namka Genze of wanting to go to study more in India. But Vajrapani advised him to stay in Tibet since he would be of more benefit in Tibet. Thus, he stayed and never left Tibet. As a result, he decided to compose treatises on the Buddhist path. The most important of his masterwork, The Great Exposition of Stages of the Path, Lamrim Chenpo, in 1402, which is still the central work on Buddhist practice in Gelugpa monastic tradition. Later, Je Lama Tsongkhapa composed a similar work on Tantra entitled The Great Exposition of Secret Mantra, Ngagrim Chemu, in 1405, which is the basis of the Gelugpa system of Tantra. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I am in awe of his hard work, and what can I say of someone who recites Om Arabhajana in a mother's womb. So my next question is, I cannot help myself but wonder what the social and religious structure of the Tibetan society at the time of Je Tsongkhapa looks like. So could you please enlighten me on this subject?
Thank you. I will try. During its long history, Tibetan social structure has been shaped, reshaped many times by the dialectical, interactive influences of internal as well as external factors. Many cultural, religious, economic, political changes affected Tibet in its early history. Over the time, at the macro level of authority, Tibetan institutions and organizations became very fragmented, a situation that persisted for almost 4 centuries. The revitalization of Buddhism in the society resulted in the establishment of different Buddhist schools, one after another. So it was nearly 300 years after some of the great Buddhist texts had been translated from Sanskrit to Tibetan. Oral teaching of Vajrayana and Mahamudra had arrived through the great Marpa Lotsawa and system of Lamde deriving from the Mahasiddha Virupa, one of the 84 Mahasiddha, based on the He Vajra Tantra, esoteric Vajra Yogini lineage, and the cycles of Vajrakila, Mahakala, and Guha Samaja were accessible through Sakya texts. Control of Mongol Yuan dynasty neared its end. The division between Sakya and Kagyu became more clear as they fought over political control of Tibet. Meanwhile, Tibet began a gradual transformation into autonomous free country. Rule of Phamudrupa dynasty continued till 1434. By the time of the birth of Lama Tsongkhapa, military hostility in Tibet more or less ended, and Mongol power reduced to a mere national value and some interference in choosing head of Sakya monasteries. The conflict between schools intensified after Mongols left Tibet, and Je Lama Tsongkhapa lived at a time when, although outwardly Buddhism appeared to be flourishing in Tibet, but in actual there seems to be a confusion about the doctrine and practice, which was rapidly destroying its spiritual essence. So it was that time of political, social, and spiritual upheaval in Tibet that Lama Tsongkhapa was born in 1357 in a nomadic family in Amdo, receiving layman ordination as early as the age of 3 from Gyawa Karma Rolbe Dorji, and followed by receiving novice ordination at the age of 7 from Lama Chöje Thundu Rinchen. Hope it sufficed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So my last question would be, what made him a great master that fostered his place in the Tibetan history?
Thank you. I'll try to sum up in brief. Je Tsongkhapa was not only a significant thinker, but also a successful reformer, a great monastic teacher, and one of the most influential spiritual leaders in Tibetan history. I want to split his life journey into his social contribution, the monastic system, and the academics, his philosophy and teachings. From social perspective, Je Tsongkhapa was the founder of monastic academic institution, Gandhin Monastery, or the Gelugpa School. He made the Gelugpa school system of education the Tibetan model of monastic education that continues to the present day. His biggest contribution here was institutionalization of the monasteries and formulation of monastic education system. He felt that it was important to study Buddhist philosophy, thus he restored the monastic studies to a more systematic and structured institution of learning. Drawing on the tradition of the great master Atisha and reflecting on his own study and learning, Je Tsongkhapa set up a curriculum of study and a mechanism to debate on fundamental philosophical treatises, which include 5 topics of the great treatises, which are the classic texts of Buddhist studies. He specifically emphasized that to understand concepts such as wisdom, compassion, emptiness, one needs to rely on teachers skilled in text. He also emphasized on reliance on the great Indian Buddhist commentators. He was also an author of 19 scholarly volumes. During his time, there were different philosophical interpretation of understanding reality. And to get the true essence of all, he traveled throughout Tibet, read manuscripts, had discussions with scholars from every school of thought. He went as far as to dialectically compare and critique different schools of thoughts. He dived into ontological extremes of absolutism and nihilism, and he was also able to put all that in perspective of free philosophy. For example, he refined the philosophical concept of interdependent co-arising and formulated a comprehensive program of Tibetan monastic education and connected this to practice. In essence, he connected his meditation to meditation on one hand and to scholarship on the other, and to rituals on one hand, to logical study of Buddhist philosophy on the other. Eventually, he produced a philosophical synthesis, perhaps largely driven by the importance he gave equally towards Sutra and Tantra, and this philosophical synthesis then became the basis for Tibetan cultural unification and social renewal. So in essence, his life was the total sum of academic achievement and his role as a leader who brought about a revolution to monastic system of education and his effort to bring peace and harmony in the Tibetan society as a whole. Thank you so much. Hope I haven't goofed up in events, and especially the learning text and the teachers' names and the places. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's all.
Thank you for enlightening us on the early life of Je Tsongkhapa, keeping it short, brief, and rich. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, our next speaker is Geshe Lode Sangbola. He will be covering the latter part of Je Tsongkhapa's biography. Geshe Lode Sangbola was born and spent his early years in Kham region, Tibet. Coming from a very simple family, he hardly had the opportunity of education there. So he left Tibet to study at Garden Changse Monastery in India in 1922. In 2006, when Lode Sangbo began studying science with Science Meets Dharma program and participated in the Emerald Tibet Science Initiative in 2008. Currently, Lode Sangbo serves as the science coordinator at Garden Changse Monastery. May I now ask Geshe Lode Sangbola some questions? Genla, How was Je Tsongkhapa's long-time retreat at the Volca Valley initiated, and what was the procedure of it?
Let's thank you. First of all, I want to express my gratitude to Vladimelam Chemu Trust for giving me this great opportunity. And then I just want to say thank you for the previous presenter, Dr. Kesam Wamula, for your such great detail and efforts for putting things in very, not short, but like kind of, very well ordered. And I haven't prepared in that way. So I will just try to go through the question that you just asked me. I will try to, say in brief. And first of all, I just want to do my kind of, a supplication. And this part, I think, in so in that, first it says that, the first you need to well inform and say you have to be well informed, and then in the second stage you have to really gain some kind of insight on the textbooks and in both the Sutra and Tantra, and then the final kind of endeavor to engage is kind of the true meditation sort of that. So I love to shed on light that a little bit as the question being asked. So to shed a little bit light on the intense retreat in Volca Valley, I think first we need to kind of talk about how what is the kind of the driving force for Je Tsongkhapa to engage in this kind of long retreat. That to end that the driving force or is kind of the inspiration was actually coming from the exhortation or the recommendation from the Manjushri and through the mystic the Umapa. And then he was accompanied by the 8 attendants or his devotees. And then for these 8, the 4 were from the central part of the Tibet, and then the 4 were from the Amdo region. And so basically, I'm sharing this background based on book by Gijituddin Jimbala, a Buddha in the Land of the Snow. So I will referring most of these, stories in that book. And then the way how actually these these attendants was choosing selected was kind of they through the very kind of careful observation, because the attendance for this kind of journey was basically recommended by the Manjushri, and in that sense, it has kind of its own that kind of significance. Then one way that we need to talk about is actually during the on the Volca Village retreat, and where during the journey where Tsongkhapa actually based his kind of meditation retreat. I think Je Tsongkhapa usually prefer to move different location, not actually sitting or staying in one location for a long time. I think maybe it's kind of following Buddha's lifestyle. Buddha has been actually traveling different locations and giving teachings and serving on many different purposes, and pretty much like that. Je Tsongkhapa also did in that kind of lifestyle. And the first Je Tsongkhapa, when he traveled to Woka Valley at that time, the supporter, the Namka Sangbo, was the kind of governor of the new district, and that he provided the first the support and then the necessities for their accommodation. And first they did kind of the first base of their retreat was kind of Woka Samdeling, which was the kind of hermitage once used by Kombopa. And then also after that, after staying there for a while, then Tsongkhapa and his disciples moved to Karpu, which was also kind of the hermitage where Kombupa had meditated. And then I think it was in 1393, the Namka Sambo built a kind of new hermitage and named Woka Chuning, and this Woka Chuning. And then the Je Rinpoche and his attendants actually stayed there and did all this kind of did all this kind of in the retreat. So Woka Chuning in terms of landscape, it is so beautiful, and it's on kind of top of the small hill mountain, and you can see the beautiful views. But since Je Rinpoche and does not prefer to stay on one location for a long time, and they start moving to different places. So here what I really wanted to emphasize is that when they started doing the really engaging into the retreat, Je Rinpoche actually insists that during this long retreat, all the groups, all the attendants need to actually follow from the very follow the Kadam master, starting building very solid kind of foundation, which is not really directly getting into some kind of higher practice, but rather actually starting from the very solid foundation, which is kind of non-frantic. In this practice includes the what we call preliminary practices, which are the kind of taking refuge to 3 jewels and repeated doing lots of prostrations and contemplation on emptiness and cultivating bodhicitta, and also analytically investigating and meditating on the nature of the reality, selflessness of the self, selflessness of the person, and selflessness of the phenomena, and all these things. So I think the lesson the lesson that we can draw for this kind of Je Tsongkhapa's approach is that these days, I mean, someone like us, or maybe particularly maybe in the Western countries, they just really wanted to attain some kind of very swift result. And in this example, Je Tsongkhapa and all his attendants have been actually studying and practicing for a long time, but still not really directly getting into the higher practice, but building the solid foundation from there. It really shows us that when we also do the practice, when we engage the practice, building this foundation is very important. It is very crucial. And because most of I think it's maybe kind of more prevalent in the Western countries, and maybe some other places as well. We just the time when we hear about the tantric and the philosophy behind it, and then the instruction, and then the all this here, we just really wanted to directly get into that kind of state, but that kind of approach, or that kind of skipping the not laying the a very solid foundation is kind of risky. So in that sense, I think the laying foundation and preliminary kind of practices is quite important. I think this is something which we as a spiritual practitioner should take a lesson from his the Je Tsongkhapa's approach and explain approach. And then Je Tsongkhapa in this kind of uh, preliminary practice, it includes the seven limbs of the the prostration and making offering to the Buddhas, and also purifying and accumulating or gathering kind of purifying negative karmas and gathering lots of virtues, and then rejoicing the other people's great deeds, and then supplicating Buddha to turn the wheel of Dharma, and then appealing or the requesting Buddha not to enter Nirvana, and at the end kind of dedicating the merit of one's practice to the well-being. And in this kind of preliminary practice, maybe we just look into the way how Je Tsongkhapa took it serious. Je Tsongkhapa actually for the purification part, actually he kind of recite the invocation of the 35 compassionate Buddha, and for the prostration part, I think he did lots of prostration, and at one point actually the print of his hands and his the bud, his hands and his legs, where he touched during the the prostration, actually the on the surface it kind of visible, the prints of the hands and all, and they had all kind of become some sort of visible from the surface, where he touched all these things. In that sense, it clearly shows the seriousness, and then the effort that he put into this kind of preliminary practice. I think we also should draw we should also draw kind of lesson and encouragement and inspiration from this kind of practice. And in addition to that, when he was doing the mandal offering, and on the kind of surface, right on the kind of flat kind of stone, and then wiping again and again, and that actually made that surface kind of very transparent, like the mirror. So he did that much of kind of the metta offering. So in that sense, someone like him, who is very much dedicated in spiritual practice, and also very much advanced in spiritual path, but still doing this much of this much of prostration and offering for gathering and for accumulating lots of merit. I think we, as someone who is really at the very beginning stage, should be doing kind of more than that. I think that is a quite important lesson that we need to really draw from his personal journey. And I thought I should highlight on this kind of his kind of his life in the journey. Then what I really wanted to cover in this kind of part of a session is that as I said before, he has been moving from different location in the Walker Valley, and then I think it was in the winter of 1393. Tsongkhapa moved to his retreat base, the Soku, and located in the Menu, and there Tsongkhapa made great progress in his more meditative practice. One day he experienced a vision of Manjushri surrounded by. So I'm basically this part I'm basically reading from the Tenjinpa's book. It says that one day he experienced a vision of Manjushri surrounded by a large retinue of Bodhisattvas, and then the great Buddha, Indian master of the past, Nagarjuna, Ayadeva, Buddha Palita, Nagabudhi, and Chandakriti, and all these, great Indian, Nalanda Buddhist scholars, and then also in terms of, the lineage of the, Tantric, also he, Luipa and all these things, he had this kind of vision. Initially, he thought, these are the kind of just, fleeting kind of an experience, and didn't take it much serious. But Tobden, who has a kind of, direct contract, who was at that time, who was also able to make a, direct kind of, communication with the Manjushri. Actually, it was come from that. That these are not just kind of just kind of dream, just kind of a dream that does not have a significance. Actually, this has a kind of indication and significances for it says that if how for there were indication of how on the basis of this master right in Tsongkhapa will bring great benefit to many people in the future. So I thought this is kind of quite important in the terms of in respects to the his journey in Wokha retreat. I think maybe I will stop for stop this much for the first this question.
Thank you so much, Kenla. This was an insightful guidance, and I am definitely inspired, and I believe many of us who are watching this will also be inspired. So my next question is, how did the restoration of Maitreya state in Jingchi unfolded during his time in retreat at Wongka Valley?
Yes, regarding to this question, actually, when Je Tsongkhapa was in the Wokha Valley retreat, what really happened is that he had some kind of different two type of vision or the dream that related with Maitreya, the Buddha, the Buddha of the future Buddha, and in dream, I will just do the quoting from Ngatutin Jiba's book. It says that it was the dream. It was a massive image of Maitreya, gold in color, attired in the garb of celestial Bodhisattva with jewel ornaments, and his right hand in the gesture of teaching, while holding the stems of two flowers. He was seated on a jewel throne, and then at another time, the Tsongkhapa had a different vision of Maitreya, this time in the form of monk seated with his feet touching the ground and attired in saffron robe, holding his unusual hand implement a water jar atop a small tree branch. This Tsongkhapa did not. So this is the kind of true vision he had, kind of in the dream related with the Maitreya, the Buddha of the future. So and pretty much like before, he didn't take it very much serious. Maybe this kind of fleeting experience. Then at that time, Je Tsongkhapa actually started reading more kind of in the depth of sutras, that is sutra that really the sutra that is very much connected with Mahayana teachings on universal compassion, bodhicitta, and altruism, and all these things. And the book that he read at that time, there are so many books. Maybe one example that I can come up with is that the flower ornament in scripture. And at that point, actually, his the transformation that really happened to him was he the bodhicitta and the compassion kind of the generation become some sort of spontaneous and automatic without needing kind of any exerting extra effort, but it ultimately becomes some kind of spontaneous. And at that time, actually, he felt, I really should teach this kind of, compassion and loving kindness to other people. And then he started, getting kind of permission from the the Manjushri. And at that point, Manjushri said that I quote that one from the book by Thupten Jimbala. It says that in sentient beings, nature is wild and difficult to tame. To give explanation to them will not be much use. It is better to concentrate on your meditative practice. You will soon find a path to benefit both self and others. So I think this lesson, I think, is pretty much relevant for all journey and study. Because we love to express all kind of uh, an intellectual understanding, and we love to show off, and even we also not putting into the kind of really serious practice. And here it clearly the Manjushri and it responded to the Je Tsongkhapa, saying that you need to do your own practice. Without actually doing the practice, just teaching other people will not be very beneficial. First you need to put in yourself into practice and gain some kind of realization, and then through that way you will definitely find a way to benefit other people, not only other people but yourself. So in that sense, someone who serve as a spiritual teacher, it clearly shows that just learning something on an intellectual level, on the brain level, is not sufficient. In order to be very effective in terms of uh, transmitting religious principles, or the assisting kind of transformation in terms of gaining insights, and also alleviating suffering by other people, to be a very effective, to be a very a great master. First, you really need to put yourself into the journey of practice, and then you need to experience the transformation. And once you experience the transformation, and then you through the journey, you learn so much from your experience, and also you will know what it feels like. And through that way, maybe we will be more kind of equipped with some resources and to teach other people. And also it may radiate the energy that we embody. And the embodiment of the energy could radiates from the spiritual master, whoever has been this kind of journey. For example, His Holiness Dalai Lama, when we see him, when his compassion and the radiance is so present at all the time. So in that sense, I think basically the lesson that we can draw from this is that it is very crucial for us to put ourselves into practice and do rigorous practice, and do the not just be some kind of philosophical on the very intellectual level, but to be a really serious practitioner. I think this is the lesson that we need to take from this kind of journey. And then I think the way how the restoring of the material statue unfolded was actually when Je Tsongkhapa was doing engaging in the seven limbs of practice, which is, and it is a kind of part of purifying negative karma and gathering virtue. And Tsongkhapa and his companion or his attendant started visiting the Dzongchi temple at that time. And and this temple was actually built by Brahmin Yuande Yungdrung, a disciple of Lojin Gompa Rapse. And historically, this temple is very much as important. And then when the Je Tsongkhapa and his retinue, his companion actually visited the temple, actually they were shocked or saddened by seeing the situation or the temple and then statue in a very kind of in a dire situation, and seeing there's lots of dust and also covering everywhere, and then the statue itself is covered in layers of dust and bird droppings and all these things, and that really touched Je Tsongkhapa, and he really kind of couldn't stop and having tears in his eye, and then he felt this is something he should renovate and to bring the temple in to the its previous glory, and because of that Je Tsongkhapa started actually raising fund for in the restoration. First they sold everything what they have, and then they did kind of prayer or the perform the rites for the namse. They did not the what is the what in Tibetan believe is kind of the pot of the wealth, and by doing this kind of rites and also spreading awareness of in this good deed, and because of that the supporters and the benefactor and making lots of donation started pouring and coming from different regions, and then finally Je Tsongkhapa was able to really restore the Dzongche monastery in its previous glory, and that was a quite big achievement in terms of his legacy, and this restoration, then the restoration of the statue is regarded as one of his four great deeds. And maybe I will stop. Maybe I will say this much, not more in detail for regarding to that question.
Thank you so much, Kinla. This was an interesting one, and when I hear you share us about Je Tsongkhapa's and all, there's goosebumps all over me, and I feel like I need to study more on his subject. So my next question is, how much did his retreat in 3 years at Waka Valley really enhance his spiritual growth and realization?
Okay. Okay, to respond to this question, as I said before, the journey started, I think, in 1392 to 1395, in 3 years, journey of the retreat, and the place, I think, starting from Waka Samdeling, and then the Waka Chuni, and then Gapu, and then Zamchi Tsongshu Chambaling Hermitage, and then Kapu and Tapo Menu region, has been kind of moving different bases, and in these kind of retreat really marks kind of the transition, not transition I would say, but it really marks kind of Je Tsongkhapa's unique sort of characteristics. Previously he was regarded or characterized as a very unraveled scholar, and spending so much time on kind of writing on sutras and all these things. But in this time, he really he and his companion really kind of stopped interacting with other people and staying in a solitude. And for this kind of journey or the retreat for Tsongkhapa, this was just not only a period of a deepening kind of the meditation or a silence meditation, but it is kind of the devotion that the devotion that he placed, the faith that he placed, and the effort that he put for accumulating lots of merits and in that sense, by doing all this kind of, preliminary ritual process, actually really amplified his kind of, uh, his kind of, the vision, the kind of, his experience and spiritual realization and his compassion kind of it becomes some sort of universal and no longer require any kind of effort to arise it, and it become, as I said before, it become really spontaneous. Whenever he evoke, it automatically arises, and then bodhicitta actually truly in terms of realization of bodhicitta has deeply enriched by the myth, by the mythic portrayal and patient extortion of the Bodhisattva ideal that he had read in the flower ornament scripture. And of course, beyond that, his daily yoga practice, especially Manjushri and Vajrabhavira, had involved a point where his experience of the vision Manjushri felt almost like being in the presence of presence of the real person. So I'm just quoting from the text by by Thupten Jinpa. So whatever what most of the points that I'm sharing here are kind of from his book. So. And then at that point, actually, one thing that he was not really, satisfied was, the realization of emptiness. I mean, and he thought, oh, I should do more kind of meditation. But at that time, he also has some kind of vision to build, Ganden Gwemba. And because of that, he expected, he will do another kind of retreat and coming back to Voka Valley so in that sense, overall, I would say this retreat really amplified his realization, not only compassion, but also tantric, the Guru Yoga, realization, all these things. Yes.
Thank you so much, Kela. My next question is, after completing his retreat at Woka Valley, Je Tsongkhapa founded Garden Monastery, which was the initial seat of Gelugpa sect. Can you tell us what was it, how was it established, and what were the driving forces for the establishment?
Okay, now Garden Monastery. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, you see, as I said before, Je Tsongkhapa kind of following the lifestyle of Buddha, not having permanent kind of residence, not permanent kind of stationary, and but as he moves on in his spiritual journey. He started getting more kind of followers or the devotees, and at the same time he was also kind of aging, and because of that it became a little bit difficult to move one place to another with such a large number of people, and also his age, and also he was having a kind of a little bit in recurrence of his back pain, and because of that there has been many complaints, maybe, or kind of complaints, or the suggestion from the his devotees and to have a kind of the permanent sort of residence or the place for the community kind of, and because of that Je Tsongkhapa started having an idea or to build some kind of monastery, and that is the initial kind of driving force for establishment of the Ganden monastery, establishment of kind of Ganden monastery, and then then Je Tsongkhapa was expecting to build Kande monastery, but at that time, where to build, the location, and the many benefactors actually suggesting to build a monastery that exists, kind of older monastery that exists at that time, and then some other proposing to build some kind of completely new monastery, kind of completely new, with a new monastery with then according to, I think in Tubin Timber's book, it says that according to some sources, one intriguing site was connected with prophecy. Logda Duchen had communicated to Tsongkhapa nearly a decade earlier. So in that sense, which was the kind of Anguri. Anguri was kind of professed a decade back by the professed by the Lord Duchen, and also because of Tsongkhapa's conducting lots of serious observation, and also examining his dream, and based on lots of and also doing lots of fervent prayers, prayers in the presence of image of the Buddha Shakyamuni in the Chokan, and based on all these things, at the end he decided to build Gandeng Gwemba at the local Anguri, the mountain, Onko mountain. Onko mountain. So to build the, I think this is quite important to highlight. To build the new monastery, and what monastery actually they need to do some kind of once the land is chosen, once the land is kind of selected, then they need to do some kind of ritual, traditional ritual rites required for constructing some kind of new monastery. This includes actually examining the site for its appropriateness, and also spaciousness, and also formally requesting permission from the earth and the local spirit to build there, and also expelling forces that might hinder the construction, long-term sustainability of the the monastery on that site. And then it is said that while they are digging the layers of the soil, or the layers of the land, and then they discovered two kind of two notable objects underneath the landscape, underneath the land that was chosen for building Ganden Gwemba. The two notable objects. The first one, the first was a kind of large point, and then the second was a kind of a mask. So in this, so the story behind that is that the second, it says that I'm kind of reading the what Kishtuben Zibala has written in here. The second was the mask which Tsongkhapa and his senior disciple took to be the mask of the Dharma protector, deity Kalarupa, belong to the Yamataka class of deities. So the mask of the Dharma protector, deity Kalarupa, and then the in relation to the significance of the white conch, the large conch, and in some of the Chinese sources, it says that once the Buddha and his monks were sitting on the shore of Lake Manasurovar, observing their rainy season retreat. At that time, the Naga king Anavatapa offered a large conch to Buddha, who in turn gave it to Mogalayana and instructed him to bury it in Tibet, the land of the red-faced people. He then professed that in the future, a monk bearing the demeanor of a lotus would spread his teaching there and use the conch to summon his congregation. so that the Buddha conclude, bury this and let it be guarded by stone shaped like a monkey. According to a later source, Tsongkhapa giving this sponge to Jaya Chuji, who after the founding of the Devu monastery. So in that sense, you see there is actually connection and the prophecy, uh, given by the Buddha himself at that time, and to bury this kind of sponge over there in Tibet, and in the future, someone monk will come and find it, and then that individual will actually uh, uh, excels his teaching and disseminate his teaching all over the Tibet, and will do some kind of a great contribution in terms of promoting his teaching. So basically, Je Tsongkhapa was kind of professed by the Buddha himself in regarding to these kind of sources. So I think this is a quite remarkable kind of story that events that we should really keep in mind. And yes, yeah, this is pretty much what I wanted to say in regarding to the questions of founding Gandhi monastery. I think that should be enough.
Thank you, Gela. So my last question is, I think Je Tsongkhapa came back to Wonka Valley and did another retreat. So could you please tell us what was the primary focus and the practice of this retreat?
Okay, so I will do a little bit kind of very concise and brief response to this, not um, uh, saying much in detail. I think we have had a kind of quite a long session, and therefore I will try to just give a very at this time in the Walker Valley, and Je Tsongkhapa was actually accompanied by the five his senior disciples, and at this time the primary focus or the practice was not the sutra aspects of the philosophical and spiritual practices, but in this time it is more focused on Vajrayana, particularly Gaya Samaja and Gaya Samaja Samandeva, which is regarded as the king of Tantra, and during their rigorous retreat, I think it says that Tsongkhapa stayed at Wakasamdili Hermitage for the entire summer and fall of 1409. So during this fall, they did a silent retreat, focused placement, and all, as I said, the Gaya Samaja. And then, regarding to the Tolden Jambetyan, so it says that, when the master taught the generation and completion stage of Gaya Samaja at Boka, I joined in the meditation practice. All of us, master and disciple, experience clear indication of transformation in our mind. So in that sense, Je Tsongkhapa himself, and including his, the five senior attendants, they actually in this focused on tantric journey, and Je Tsongkhapa himself, of course, gained deeper insight, and also at that point he felt he should write some kind of books more in the kind of the Ngarin Chembo, the Ngarin Chembo. It's pretty much like a the Lamri Chembo, and the great stages of the path, and then the great stage of tantric version of that, and started in he felt that this is the time for him to actually write more on tantric, and that was a kind of quite a huge sort of transition for him to moving writing on Gaya Samaja tradition, and based on Tibetan tradition, actually drawing actually from the Indian resource. I think someone to really, draw, someone really to author a major work on tantric, it says that, you have to have at least, important qualification and kriya. And if you don't have that kind of condition or qualification, then you are not supposed to compose some kind of very profound, textbooks on tantric, particularly, the higher, the yoga tantra. And in that sense, that the four criteria it is mentioned in this, book is that the translation version of in this book is that, first you need to receive the specific instruction through an unbroken lineage of transmission, of course. And the Je Tsongkhapa has been, receiving the transmissions of, this tantric way back when he was way back, back his childhood. And then the one has to actually gain some kind of good knowledge of instruction and trying to practice. Of course, Je Tsongkhapa is some kind of, excelled in this, knowledge. And then the third quality is that attaining some personal realization through meditative practice. And of course, during his retreat in 3 years and also retreating this time, that really made him to gain higher and a deeper realization, and that really makes him to having the attributes of this kind of qualification. Then the third one is obtaining some special sign from the meditated deity indicating their permission to write. And actually, Je Tsongkhapa has been having, while doing this retreat, actually he has been having kind of, lots of dream and interacting with many different, scholars and Manjushri, Maitri, and all these things. And in that, in the dream, he was, kind of, getting all these permissions, kinds of signs, and premonitions. And because of that, he's the one who has all this qualities. And at that time he really felt, I really need to move and move forward and do kind of writing more on tantric. And I think that is a kind of his journey where he started really composing on the more depth and more details of tantric books. I think this is pretty much what I have to say, regarding to that question.
Thank you so much, Genla, for sharing us your profound knowledge, and I will forever be in doubt for what you shared with us. Now, I, on behalf of Chutul Melam Chomo Trust, would like to extend a very hearty word of thanks to our guest speakers for gracing us this evening with your presence and enlightening us with your intelligence and knowledge. With this, I would like to dedicate this session as a seed for someone to study about Je Tsongkhapa and be inspired and learn from him. So this is it, and thank you so much for your time. This was a successful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yours on you.